Okay, I hope my screen is visible. So today we are going to discuss default exception handling in Java. This is one of the important concepts in dealing with exception handling. So before dealing with any exceptions in Java, we must understand how the Java programming language handles the default exceptions. Right? So I have taken a small Java code snippet. This is a small piece of Java code. So I deliberately I'm making sure that there is an exception getting generated over this line. Right? So how the program will be executed, and as soon as the program encounters this exception, what are the things that will happen in the backend? We will see that. Right? Before proceeding further, let us understand how the execution starts. We already know, and I am repeating it once again. So whenever a code is written in Java, the code will be saved with .java file. So that's the first thing. So .java file. The extension is .java, or the name of the file should be same as the class name, which is test.java. Right? After this, the code needs to be compiled. In order to do that, in order to perform compilation, we need a compiler, and the source code will be sent to the compiler. Right? Compiler will check if the code has any errors. The code is error free. Compiler is going to generate .class file. You know this already. It is going to be test.class file. So this test.class file will be sent to JVM for execution. So this test.class file is sent to JVM for execution. So before actually proceeding with execution, JVM is going to create a thread. We call this thread as a main thread. So this is how one should imagine about the execution. So this is the main thread. The main thread, usually it will try to get access to the main method. Right? So if you see in this program, the main method is just over here. So this is the main method. Right? From here, the main thread, as soon as it finds the main method, it will execute all the instructions that is available in the main method. The first instruction is main thread start. Simple system.out.println statement. So we get main thread start. Before that, there will be a stack frame that will be created in the memory. In the JVM, there will be a stack frame. This is how the stack frame looks like. This simple stack frame that will be created in the JVM. Let me delete this. Right. So in this stack frame, it is going to push the methods that is getting executed. So first method is main method. So since the main thread is encountering the main method, so inside the stack is going to push the main method. So main method will be in the stack frame. Right? After this, the first statement, this is the first statement. So this is the first statement. So the output is going to be directly what? Main thread start. So this is very important. Attention is required. Main thread start. First output. So the second instruction is from here, the control has to go to M1. It is calling M1 method. So before actually calling M1 method, this M1 method will be pushed into the stack. Pushed into the stack frame. So here let us say this is M1 method. Right? So the control goes from M1 From here, you will actually check for the M1 method. Where the M1 method is located, if you see M1 method is located over here. From here, the control will go to M1. Let me take like this. Control will go to M1. So M1 method is already put in the stack frame. Okay. So in the M1 method, again the first instruction is what? The first instruction is first M1 start. So M1 start will be printed in the console. To find the trace output, M1 start will be displayed in the console. Right. So again the second instruction in the M1 method is, again this M1 method is calling a method which is M2. So this is M2 method, and this M2 method has to be pushed into the stack frame. Right. So from M2, since it is calling M2 method, the control will be traveling from here to directly to M2. Right. The first instruction in the M2 is what? Within the M2, the first instruction is M2 start. So M2 start will be printed in the console. These things we know already. Start. Okay. After the M2 start, the second instruction is we have a statement that is going to throw an error. So we have a statement which says 10 divided by 0. It is going to throw an exception. So this is something, this is a trouble creating statement. Right? So it is going to throw an exception. As soon as the main thread is encountering this instruction, what it does is usually the exception occurs inside a method. The method will create a exception object. What happens as soon as the main thread encounters this instruction, it is throwing an exception. So in the JVM, what happens? An exception object will be created. So this is the exception object. Right? So method 2, here the method 2 is going to create an exception object because exception is occurred in the, not method M2. M2 is going to create an exception object because exception is occurred in the M2 method. So an exception object will be created. In this object is going to store 3 entities. One is name of the exception. Second one is description. Description. The third one is going to be what? Location. At exactly on which line the exception has occurred. Right? So after creating this exception object, this is called as an what? This object is called as exception object. Like to understand exception object. This exception object will be sent to JVM. From here, this object will be directly sent to JVM. So now the JVM will take responsibility. What responsibility will take? The JVM will check if there is any code. If there is any code that is available in the method M2 to handle this exception. Right? So there is no code available here to handle this exception. No code in the sense handling exception means we can use try catch blocks. We will see that later. But JVM will check here if there is any code available in the method M2 because exception got generated in the method M2. Within the M2, the JVM will check if there is any code that is available in the M2 to handle this exception. So there is no code available in the M2. Right? So what it will check, what it will do, the M2 method that is available in the stack. So here we have M2 method in the stack. It will be terminated abnormally. Abnormal in the sense, if it is a normal termination, the M2 method has to get popped out. What do you mean by popped out? It is a normal termination. M2 has to come out. That is a normal termination. If it is an abnormal termination, the M2 method will get stuck in the stack itself. It will get terminated here itself. This is abnormal termination. Hope you're able to understand. If it is a normal termination will look like this. As soon as it is pushed in, it will be popped out. It is getting popped out, it is a normal termination. Instead of getting popped out, if it is getting terminated here, it is a normal termination. Right? So from here, the M2 method was called by which method? M2 method was previously called by M1 method, because inside the M1 method, we have a M2 call. And now JVM will check if the M1 method has any handling code, any exceptional handling code. Even M1 method has no any exceptional handling code. So that's why M1 method will also get terminated abnormally. Right? So again, this M1 was a call from main method, because main method was calling M1 method, right? Again, the JVM will check if there is any handling code available in the main method. Right? So there is no handling code available in the main method. So again, the main method will also get terminated abnormally. At last, from main control came to the main method from the JVM, because main thread was born from the JVM. So control from the main method will go back to the JVM, and JVM will generate this. JVM is going to send this exception object, generate exception object, and it will display it in the console. The console, you will find the name, description, and the location of the exception. So run this code in the command prompt. So this is the code that I have written in the notepad. So run this code in the command prompt. So this is the output. So output is main method start, M1 start, M2 start, and we have the exception object. You see the exception object, it says name of the exception and exactly location of the exception, each and every information it has. You see here at test.m2 method got terminated abnormally, M1 method is also terminated abnormally, and main method is also terminated. All the abnormal termination of each and every individual methods are displayed here along with the line numbers. So this information was created by the default exception handler in Java. Right? Let me write it here once again. So if you see the output, see the first output was main thread. Second output is M1 start. Third output is M2 start. After this exception occurred, so this is what the output really looks like from the JVM. Main method, M1 start, M2 start. After that, the thread was able to identify the exception, and it is displaying all the exception object. This is the exception object. So the object that was created before, the same object will be displayed to the console. So here, if you understand one thing, so default exception handling in Java is really not handling the exception. It is just generating an object with the information related to the exception. That's it. Apart from that, it is not doing anything. It's just generating this exception object, and it is displaying it to the console. This is what exactly the default exception handler means. Right? Hope you are able to understand this. Just type yes in the chat box if you have understood this, so that we can proceed further.